Welcome to our channel, where we talk all things true crime. This video is for educational purposes based on public knowledge. We do give our opinions at the end, but please do your own research. We mean no disrespect for any mispronunciation of names or places. Let's get started.
On the morning of December 22nd, 1997, a 911 call was made by William Stevens and his neighbor, Corey Milliken. When responding police officers arrived at the mobile home in Nashville, they found Williams's wife, Sandra Jean Stevens, and her mother, Myrtle Wilson, dead. On the surface, it looked like a robbery gone horribly wrong. Once the police started to investigate the crime scene, it became clear something else was going on.
Around 4:45 in the morning on December 22nd, William with his son John met Corey's brother Sean, Austin, to go to a job site 90 miles away from the Stevens home. They stopped along the way to get breakfast, but once they had reached the job site, William said it was way too muddy to work. They then headed back home, arriving around 8:30 a.m. This is when William made the 911 call.
Officers Sean Donnelly and Gary Clements on the Metro Police Department were the first officers on the crime scene. When they entered the home, they found the two bodies. They sealed off the crime scene, started canvassing the area for witnesses, and searching the grounds for any physical evidence. Officer Clements started talking with Corey. The officer noticed that Corey had blood spots on his shirt, blood under his nails, and fresh scratches on his cheek and wrist.
Once the investigation was underway, the police doubted that Corey had worked alone. One of the first tip-offs was that William and Corey had inconsistent stories and alibis. William said he left for work around 5:30 a.m. and returned at 8:30 a.m. That's when he found the bodies of his wife and his mother-in-law. Corey said he saw William leave for work at 6:15 a.m. and return at 9 a.m. They also contradicted each other on whether William's door was locked or not. The police quickly found physical evidence that linked Corey to the crime scene. Corey's fingerprints were found on a knife and a lamp that was used in the attacking of the victims. His blood was also found on a towel and a pillowcase that he used to clean himself up when he committed the murders.
Officer Clements had turned Corey over to detectives for more questioning. During this interview, Corey admitted that he had killed both Sandra and Myrtle by himself. He gave the police a detailed account of the murders and crime scene. As police continued to search for more evidence around the property, Officer Clements noticed that the underpinning on a nearby trailer had been pulled loose. Under the trailer, he found a bag that contained jewelry, a white blood-stained t-shirt, a butcher knife, prescription medication, and a camera. Police tracked down items that were stolen from the home. They recovered a camera, a VCR, a stereo, and a ring. The items were traced back to Corey and his friends. The police had also found a receipt in Corey's name from a pawn shop for selling a necklace that belonged to Sandra.
Back at the crime scene, the detectives assigned to investigate the murders found no sign of forced entry. The break-in looked staged. Dresser drawers were pulled open, but not ransacked. Clothes were pulled out of the closet and tossed on the floor, but the clothes were still on the hangers. The Christmas tree looked as though it had been gently pushed over. None of the ornaments were broken or even scattered on the floor. Presents were torn open, but nothing appeared to be taken. The only real sign of struggle was in Myrtle's bedroom.
Both Sandra and Myrtle were found lying in their beds. Myrtle was still in her nightgown, and there was a large amount of blood on her body, the bed, and other items in the bedroom. Myrtle's cause of death was manual strangulation and stab wounds. Sandra was found nude and was left in a displayed position. She was laying on her back with her legs spread apart. Sandra died from ligature strangulation. She did have blood on her knees. This shows that she was killed second, and the blood was transferred from Myrtle. There were X-rated magazines placed around her body and a photo album of nude photos of Sandra. There was no blood found on these items.
William and Corey had known each other for 1 year. Corey lived 3 trailers down from William with his brother Sean, who was then about 15 years old, along with their mother and stepdad. Corey and Sean would work for William, helping him build underskirting on mobile homes. Sean stated that he and his brother spent a lot of free time at William's home. It was in the fall of 1997 when William approached the brothers and asked if they would kill William's ex-wife and his son's mother, Vicki Stevens. William told the brothers to get a rifle and shoot her when she came out of her mobile home. William then told them he would get full custody of his son John, and he would also get Vicki's car, trailer, and land.
William changed his mind around Thanksgiving and asked the brothers to kill his current wife Sandra and his mother-in-law Myrtle. William offered the boys $2,500 each. William said that he and Sandra were having marital problems and another divorce would wipe him out. He said he would pay them with the proceedings of Myrtle's life insurance policy or a yard sale. Sean was supposed to be the lookout when Corey killed the women. The boys couldn't find a gun with a silencer, so Corey was then supposed to use a knife to kill them. Sean then decided he didn't want to be involved as the lookout, but did agree to provide an alibi for William. Sean would not get the $2,500 for this, so the entire $5,000 would go to Corey.
William hadn't yet told Corey a date that he wanted the murders committed. He gave Corey plenty of instructions. He told Corey to kill Myrtle first because his wife sleeps with her door closed and a fan on and wouldn't be able to hear anything. William also told Corey that the door would be unlocked and the alarm would not be set. He even went the extra mile and gave Corey a key to the front door. William gave him even more instructions on how Corey was to kill the women. William told Corey to destroy the trailer and make it look like a robbery had happened. He instructed what items were to be stolen. William even took Corey on a tour through the home and pointed out what items needed to be stolen and pointed out items to be untouched. This included the TV, dishes, and his Star Trek collection.
William also told Corey how to dispose of the evidence. Corey was told to throw the murder weapon on the top of the school building that was nearby and to toss the bag of stolen items into the river. When Corey was done with this, he was to go to his girlfriend's house to create an alibi. William finally told the brothers that the murders had to take place on the 22nd of December. He told them his ex-wife was having back surgery and he would have his son John. John would act as another alibi. Corey agreed to commit the crime on that day.
The testimony of Chris Holman, a friend of Corey, had proof that William had hired Corey to kill his wife and mother-in-law. Chris said at the end of October, Corey had asked him if he could get him a gun with a silencer. Chris told Corey he wasn't into that anymore. 3 weeks before the murders, Corey approached Chris again and asked if he would help him kill William's wife and mother-in-law. Corey told Chris they would make it look like a robbery and he would split the $5,000 even. Chris refused.
When William was in jail at the Davison County Criminal Justice Center, he was really chatty with his cellmate, Lane Locke. William knew that Lane was a former police officer and a certified paralegal. William talked with Lane about his case because he wanted to get Lane's legal knowledge. William told Lane about his problems with his wife and stated he did not want to go through another divorce because his life was in order and another divorce would wipe him out. William also told Lane about his relationship with Corey. William had described Corey as a big dumb kid. Lane said it seemed like William led Corey around quite a bit. Lane also said that William didn't want to attend Sandra's funeral and he never showed any emotions over her death.
Lane testified that only one time William showed any emotions after his preliminary hearing. William was really upset and told Lane, "Sean is just as guilty as the rest of us, and he's the only one that's going to get away with it. I can't believe those idiots thought I was going to pay them." Another inmate, Michael Street, testified that William had asked him to intimidate Corey Milken or have him killed in one form or fashion. William told Michael that Corey was the only person that could put him in prison. He also told Michael that he hired another inmate to do it, but the plan fell through. Michael refused the job. Letters between William and the inmate that he first attempted to pay to intimidate Corey in jail were presented as evidence. William had also gotten several $100s in money orders that were made out to Charles Randall, the inmate he had hired.
Evidence was also presented that William owed his mother-in-law a large amount of money. Larry Wilson, Myrtle's son, testified for over 3 years. Before the murders, he was investing and keeping track of his mother's finances, which totaled $83,000. William had borrowed $40,000 to start a business, which he did not pay back. About a month before her death, she told her son she didn't have the funds that she thought she should. After Myrtle's murder, Larry was going through his mother's finances and found a check written to William on June 10, 1997, for the amount of $4,000. Larry said the check was questionable for many reasons, including that the check was printed and not handwritten. He said his mother never printed her checks. He also stated that his mother had recorded the amount of the check as $40 and not $4,000. Myrtle's hairdresser, Doris Trott, testified that she had multiple conversations with Myrtle during the fall of 1997. Myrtle had told Doris that William had borrowed the money and he had not paid back any of it.
Sandra's diary was presented as evidence. The diary was used to prove the marital problems between Sandra and William. Sandra described her increasing unhappiness and distrust of her husband's fidelity. Sandra still loved her husband, but she just wanted out of the marriage. Sandra's ex-husband, William Byers, testified that he had talked to her before her death and she had told him that William refused to give her a divorce. She also told her ex-husband about Corey and how she didn't like him. She had described him as a source of conflict between her and her husband. In her diary, she said that Corey was the wedge driving her and her husband apart.
There was evidence presented by the defense that Corey was sexually infatuated with Sandra. Sean testified that Corey told him that William had showed nude pictures of his wife to Corey and that William had also told Corey that Sandra wanted to have sex with both of the men at the same time. A crime scene expert said that the murders had a sexual component. The display of magazines and photos around Sandra was to humiliate and degrade her. The theory was that Corey committed sexual murder as an act of aggression. This is due to an argument with his mom and stepdad the night before he murdered the two women.
The jury found William Stevens guilty of 2 counts of premeditated first-degree murder and 2 counts of aggravated robbery. He was sentenced to death in 1999, but died from natural causes in 2016 while on death row. During the sentencing, the defense presented testimonies from William's family, neighbors, and co-workers. William's sister stated that he had a normal childhood and had a close relationship with his son. His foster brother had said that they had a great family upbringing. Vicki Stevens, William's first wife, said that he was a good husband and father during their marriage. He made all of his child support payments and remained a loving and caring father. She also stated that she wished that William was spared the death penalty for the sake of their son. A former boss said that William was a hard worker and trusted him enough to give him a key to his own house. Multiple neighbors testified that William was very helpful to others in the community. He would loan money to some of his neighbors and help fix their trailers without asking for payment. William would also check in with the neighbors who were sick, alone, or elderly.
Corey Milliken pleaded guilty to 2 counts of premeditated first-degree murder and 1 count of aggravated robbery. He was sentenced to 2 concurrent life sentences for the murders and 12 years for the aggravated robbery. Corey's brother Sean was not charged with anything relating to the murders of Sandra Stevens and Myrtle Wilson.
So what do we think?
He was obviously a terrible human. I mean, there's no getting around it. He had the facade of being a nice, friendly family man to the community. Given that so many people testified on his behalf, even knowing that he had hired these kids to kill his wife and mother-in-law. Corey was, I think, 18 at the time, and Sean was 15. Yeah. Their children. And even his ex-wife, Vicki, that he initially wanted killed, came to his defense.
That's just bizarre to me. Like, okay, so you're a good human to me, but then I find out you do something heinous. I'm not going to go testify on your behalf and be like, please spare him. He's really a good person. No. I mean, I think he was a faker and he was able to, like, put on that front for other people to think that he was a good human, but deep down he wasn't. I mean,
no, obviously.
Or he wouldn't have done what he did. And it sounds like a lot of greed.
I was going to say for very selfish reasons, because he had borrowed money, didn't want to pay it back, and his whole motive to kill his wife was he didn't want to go through another divorce so that he would, get wiped out again, meaning financially. And then he told the boys that I'll get all of her stuff.
Yeah, okay, here, I'm gonna pay you, but we're gonna have a yard sale after you do the job.
I'm gonna sell all of her stuff.
What?
No. It just is very shallow and very greedy, and it just baffles me that so many people, neighbors, previous bosses were like, I know he hired these 2 kids to kill people, but he's really a good man.
Yeah, no. We talked about this earlier, and he was sentenced to death in 1999. And then he died of natural causes in 2016. That's a really long time just to hang out on death row. And I get, I believe the law is, and I may be wrong, if so, let me know in the comments, but I think now it's if you're sentenced to death, you are required at least 1 appeal.
Yeah.
Like, to try to make sure that it's legit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because occasionally someone is found guilty and they're innocent, not necessarily of like this caliber of a crime, but you know, that does happen. People do get released sometimes years later
Yeah.
when they were found to be innocent. But it's like, how many appeals can you go through? And I feel like with this case, it was pretty cut and dry.
There's so much evidence against him. There was even a letter he had wrote to Corey giving him instructions on what to do and telling him to be careful. There was so much evidence against
And he
William.
signed the note.
He signed the note. It was his handwriting. It wasn't typed out. It was handwritten. So it wasn't like, well, we're not entirely sure he was in on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like when certain things are cut and dry, like, it shouldn't go on that long. Like, if that's, you know, not everybody believes in the death penalty, but it's like, if that is what you were sentenced to, because that's the punishment that fits the crime, deemed by, you know, a jury of your peers, then, like, you shouldn't, in my opinion, you shouldn't just hang out on death row forever.
Like, they just stay on death row. Like, basically their whole life. What is the point of saying they got death?
Yeah.
I mean, why not just say you got life in prison?
Yeah, like, you're never getting out. Like, no possibility of parole.
And then the defense that Corey's lawyer came up with, okay, I can definitely see there would be a, you know, sexual motivation, maybe an element that he had the hots for the woman, whatever, but saying that it was basically an outburst due from an argument the night before.
Like, he threw a small child tantrum and, like, threw his toys around. No.
He went and murdered people that he was already planning to murder. Like, it was already agreed to. And the fact that he had already agreed to kill the ex-wife. And then he was like, oh, okay, just switch the people. So it's nothing against that woman specifically. He was wanting money.
Well, yeah, and so, like, his whole defense was crap.
But yeah, the fact that he did that with the magazines and her own photos, it's just...
It's vile.
It's just gross, and yeah. But them both, I think, William and Corey had made statements about Sean should be, you know, he should be found guilty. He didn't participate, and in fact, I think he, like, told on them.
Yeah, like, they used
as soon as they, like, came to him, he was like, no.
Maybe, I don't know if he, like, if he went to the police before, it could have been prevented. Who knows if he did that or not.
He's a 15-year-old child,
He is
though.
a 15-year-old child. But he also, like, I'm sure once their bodies were found, he's like, oh, shit. Like,
it hit
they
him,
did
the
it.
reality.
It's kind of like people say things all the time and you just don't think that they mean it.
Yeah.
You know
or
what I mean?
even if you think they mean it, it's not that reality. It doesn't hit you until after the fact. And again, being a child,
Well,
you know,
yeah.
because you went to work with the dude and, you know, I don't know. I would have assumed my sibling would have not gone through with it.
Yeah, like maybe he didn't take his sibling serious.
Yeah, like it was just some weird thing. But I don't know. Either way, I don't think he should have been charged with anything, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
My favorite is William in jail asking the former police officer for legal advice.
As if though, you know, he's not going to tell him. What was the officer in jail for? Do we know?
No, it just said former police officer and that he was a certified paralegal. So he wanted his legal knowledge. What legal knowledge do you have? And then he was trying to get that kid killed in jail.
Yeah.
Because he was the only one that could technically put him away. That's what he thought in his head anyways.
And there was like the money orders like made out to him. But it's like, even if like the inmate wasn't a former officer or any of that, when people get information and they're in jail, they will go narc people out so they can get a better deal for themselves, even if it's like in the form of commissary or...
I was going to say, just anything that could benefit them to make them more comfortable.
Or if they want to go to a different facility because a different facility is better or whatever. If I was in jail, I'd be narking up people all day long.
Well,
but
I mean,
you know what I
the
mean?
fact is, like, why would you think somebody would not say anything?
Like, a criminal's a criminal. Like, they're in there because they did things for their own selfish reasons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so they're going to continue to do that.
Yes.
Seems like common knowledge.
Yeah, but him just trying to get legal knowledge from the guy, I don't really know what he was trying to gain from it. From the fact that, oh, I did this because I didn't want to go through another divorce.
That's like the lamest excuse.
And the thing is, though, he said it would wipe him out financially, but it seemed like Sandra and her mother were just fine because he was trying to get her stuff.
Yeah.
They didn't have children together. I don't know what he meant by financially wiped out. It seems like because he was paying child support to his first wife or ex-wife, Sandra was probably helping to support him.
I was going to say, I bet he was relying on Sandra and Myrtle's money.
Yeah, to like Because he said his financials were finally in order. It's because you had help. It wasn't
And
from
he
your
was
own
stealing
doings.
money from Myrtle.
Yeah, which is sad all around.
So
but
sad, absolutely. So what do you think? Have you heard of this story? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing and turn on notifications for future videos. Until next time, stay safe.